Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this.
The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again. They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of Special Operations Forces.
We will make America proud again. And watch, please, those mail-in ballots. We will make America safe again. And in millions and millions of ballots, their vote is under what they thought they needed. They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you. If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, good evening, you fine space cadets. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. I'm your host, Jon Herold, and as always, I'm joined by Burning Bright. Burning Bright, what do you think, man? We went to the moon today. We went back to the moon today.
We're on our way back to being near the moon. Don't mess up the science.
You're right.
Okay,
that was my bad.
You don't want to be spreading misinformation about the April Fool's Artemis launch. Because yes, we are, according to a colorful diagram that I looked at on the internet, scrolled past very quickly, we are performing some sort of slingshot around the moon so that we can see if they left a Pink Floyd album up there. And which movie is that?
Mars.
Armageddon?
Wait, which one?
Don't they slingshot themselves around the moon in Armageddon after the heroic oil thing?
No, I know they do it in the movie Martian. That's what it is. Like when they slingshot themselves around Earth to go back to Mars to get the guy in the
guys. I think, Chad, tell me. I'm pretty sure that's how Ben Affleck gets home. He leaves his father-in-law stranded to die on an asteroid that they are drilling to blow up with a nuke, which all might be related to the Iran crisis, actually. A lot of themes from Armageddon. Drilling, asteroids, slingshotting around the moon.
Yeah, Strait of Hormuz. Isn't that on the asteroid? Isn't that what they call it?
Probably. I think it was a metaphor for the Strait of Hormuz.
Probably.
There was that weird animal cracker scene with Liv Tyler's belly that was very confusing when you were very young. And her boobs
and the mountaintop.
Yeah,
that was a little confusing.
Mm-hmm. In a good way.
Anyway. It's a CC spoiler alert. If you haven't seen those movies, we apologize for completely ruining it. I was talking to a guy today after my show because I was obviously making fun of the moon launch. I was like, people are trying to be excited about this moon thing. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm not there. I don't really care. And I feel like just as a whole, like you think back, and I wasn't even alive back then, but I can feel how excited people were about the idea of going to the moon back in the 60s and 70s, just based on the films and how people talk about it and all those things. There's no excitement like that about this. And but anyway, this guy texted me after the show and he's like, so my cousin, this is a guy I know, he's from Bismarck. He doesn't live in Bismarck anymore, but he's a Badlander. His cousin is working, like he's a senior engineer for one of the pieces of the Artemis mission. And I was like, asking him, I was like, have you talked to him about this stuff? Like, what's going on here? And he's like, he literally says they don't have the technology to land on the moon right now. And I was like, dude, how is that fucking possible? He's like, I don't get it. He doesn't get it either, but he won't answer the question. His cousin won't answer the question or give a good answer about whether or not they actually went to the moon in the first place. It's a senior NASA engineer.
Like I don't even like. I've said before, even private discussions around the InfoWar, I don't even enjoy the space discussion because it just gets really emotional and toxic very quickly with people for some reason. But I am comfortable saying that for me, that last point you just made is like the one that I don't think should be controversial to state, which is that whatever you think is going on, and this is where like shout out and sort of I'm shitting on Jordan Sather, but in an argument with him a couple of months ago when me and Chris were pointing out the very obvious, ridiculous narrative that we had the technology to do something in the 60s that we do not have today. Jordan responded with, well, I think that some of the stuff in space has been fake and some of the stuff has been real. Which, okay, totally willing to believe that. You've got government agencies that lie about everything, right? But to try to shut down people who think maybe we're not being told the truth about what's going on with space rockets and the moon when we could do something in 1962 that we can't do in 2026 is absurd. Not just because it's obviously absurd, but because these same agencies that supposedly did this in the 60s are very proud to tell you that today the technology in your pocket is more advanced than the entirety of NASA in the 60s. So bit of a contradictory narrative going on there.
I think it's more so, to me, it's like, if they're willing to lie about that to that scale, like such a big thing to that scale, what else are they willing to lie about? And the answer is everything. They will literally lie about anything and everything.
It's amazing that cognitive dissonance is the word, though. And like I was oddly, I was at a bar
Isn't
earlier
that two
and
words?
I saw people. Yeah, the term, I guess.
Okay.
But I was at a bar earlier, as I would be, and there were
Is that
people.
why you're a little drunk right now? You're slurring your words?
I'm not drunk.
Oh, I'm joking, bro. Sorry. Keep going.
Yes, we have to leave bars very quickly now because, Baby Bright.
Miss Bright's drinking problem?
He can't drink, and he has one, and he's just freaking gone. He can't hold it. But I saw people cheering at the screen in there, and I was very confused by it but it felt forced. To your earlier point, it was like, did you guys even know this was happening before you saw this right now?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I want to know how much tax dollars we spent on this. And could Elon Musk have done it with SpaceX on his own dime?
Well, I did read one article about this today, and NASA is saying that when they finally land on the moon for the first time in 60 years again, once they're able to do that, they plan to build all kinds of shit there, and it is expected to be a joint operation with SpaceX. So NASA can't do it, and also maybe it's not happening.
I don't know, man. I don't know,
Yeah.
But whatever. We're going back. There were some crazy videos. My son earlier today, he watched. I'd taken my daughter to dance. My son stayed back with my girlfriend. They watched the thing, and he was asking like, do these things ever like explode? And so then he went into watching like videos of rockets blowing up, which is super funny, even though it didn't show him the Challenger video. But yeah, it's just funny where the kids' minds go. But we'll tonight's show, I do want to talk about that executive order that Trump just put out about elections. I think we'll get into that. We'll obviously get into the Iran conflict a little bit. Trump had a statement tonight. I didn't finish watching it. I watched. It must have been over half. It didn't seem like a very long statement. But we'll talk about that because I kind of figured it was going to go exactly how it went. It was basically his True Social feed in speech format.
I missed. I Am Rosie just sent a rant over for $10 and said in Trump's speech tonight, he said the astronauts were, quote, unbelievable. I bet they were.
Yeah, he says that about a lot of things.
Yeah, I know. But it's just, I mean, come on. April 1st. Like,
yeah.
If it was fake, what could the media and scientific establishment do about a deployment like this, right? Like, imagine the position it would put them in.
Yeah,
they have to be like, this is great because of the science.
By the way, guys, I think we're live on Facebook. Cheryl set it up, and I think we're streaming. I don't know if we have a single viewer there, but if anybody wants to go check our Facebook to see if we're live, that would be really cool, just so I can see if it works. Adam Chester, my nuts, says China lands on the moon, Russia lands on the moon, India landed on the moon, Japan has landed on the moon. We have landed on the moon. We have technology to land on the moon whenever we choose to. Okay.
There's a 0% chance India has done any of that.
Your dollar rant is convincing and compelling, but also, like, I trust the guy whose cousin is a senior NASA engineer. I mean, he could be bullshitting me, but he doesn't seem like that kind of guy.
We just don't have the technology, man. That was some crazy tinfoil back then.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not necessarily the landing on the moon. It's the landing people on the moon and getting them back off the moon.
Right.
It's the whole gamut. And then Siesta Randy, I'd rather see a big orange circle with a B in it, Bitcoin, go to the moon instead. I think we'd all rather see that, wouldn't we? Oh, so true. Real quick, let's get a quick word from a couple of our sponsors, and then we'll start plugging away. First up, we got our GART promo, because we got GART coming up next week. We are 1 week away from, you get in Wednesday, right?
I do. Yes. Madness.
What time?
At night. I don't want the deep state to know.
Well, in time, could we record the show live there?
I'm not sure. I
think
think so.
Pre-record. Let's plan this out right now in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, GART promo. Get your tickets,
Tuesday,
guys.
it could be Thursday, it could be any time. You know, we're high value targets, John.
High value to some people, I'm sure.
Patriots, The fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.
Get your tickets, guys. We're doing another exclusive live stream for ticket holders tomorrow. Is tomorrow Thursday? Tomorrow's Thursday.
Yeah, which is
we'll be doing that tomorrow after my daily show. So it's only for people with tickets. We are also going to be trying to do at some point some man on the ground videos. And I think a lot of that is going to be, or is it boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground videos.
And I do think in Nashville there are boots worn.
Yeah, we're going to call them boots on the ground videos. And I think we're going to be on that Vanderbilt campus, so we'll try to set one of those up. And a lot of that content will be for the Telegram chat. So make sure.
College kids.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, we'll do our best. See what we can do.
How Israel's the best, and do some Shapiro sort of smugly sit down with a coffee mug and
we talk about the Jews and call it Jews on the ground video.
Right. Show how intellectually superior we are to young adults who are being raked over the coals in the U.S. education and financial system at the same time.
Yeah, we could do one of those things. I'll sit at the table, and on the front of the table I'll put, "I am a black tranny illegal alien Jew. Change my mind." And then see what happens.
Yeah, you'll get kirked pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, probably. It is what it is. That's how you become immortal, right? In this world.
Right.
No,
What's
just
the
kidding.
Quote from The Sandlot? One of the great American myths. Heroes live forever, but legends never die, John. The ghost of Babe Ruth says this to one of the small children whose bedroom he appears
from
in.
his bedroom.
I do love that movie.
I never thought it's a great movie. I never thought of that context. So just some grown adult in the bedroom of a kid giving them just one of the best quotes of all time.
It was normal in those days, damn it.
Have you guys done that movie yet for Story Hour, by the way?
No, we should though. I at the end of every show, like we'll show the IMDb page for whatever we're picking, and we very rarely tell each other what we're picking. So last night I had the Hannah Montana movie pulled up just to see Chris's reaction, because I was like, I'm gonna pick a Nashville themed movie, and I had that one queued up first, and he went no, and then
what'd you end up picking then?
It's a movie called Nashville from 1975, which is apparently very good, actually.
You guys gotta watch that Mercy movie, because that is like the whole AI thing.
Oh yeah.
It's right up there. It's not the best movie ever. There's some, flaws, some whatever, but it's pretty good. There's one more thing.
You really sold it.
It's worth watching just because of the tech dystopia. They can spy on you, the surveillance state.
Yeah, there's movies now that I think of. I'm like, this would be a good story hour movie. Doesn't mean it's a good movie.
Yeah, it's good to discuss, but in terms of plot holes, there are plenty, stuff like that. If you're looking for it. And by the way, I did get confirmation that we are live on Facebook. It even gives us the names of who's watching on Facebook.
Wow.
That's crazy. Or no, who liked it on Facebook. So I can see who liked it and who loved it, you guys. This is going to be my nice list. Who wants Christmas presents? Anyway, real quick, also, guys, get yourself some soft disclosure. Easter's this weekend. No better time to do it than right now. Softdisclosure.com.
Every Easter, one brave bunny takes on a very important mission. Spreading Easter joy. And apparently dropping most of it. And sometimes there's goat-related complications. Skincare so good even the goats might want it. Because Easter is really about the greatest victory ever. Hope, renewal, and a promise kept. And every soft disclosure purchase supports 6 small American businesses working together. Use code GRACE for 15% off. Soft disclosure. Good for your skin. And apparently approved by goats.
Softdisclosure.com. That ad is pretty awesome.
I like to imagine a future where this is all that remains, like the echoes of Badlands are just assorted soft disclosure ads that somebody discovers in the future. They're like, what happened here in this time?
Was lotion really that important to everybody?
It was everything.
It was everything. Man, there was one more thing I was going to say and then I forgot. Damn it. You made me forget.
Oh, we did the Men Who Stare at Goats last night. Speaking of goats.
Yeah, but there's a comment in the chat I was going to address, and now I can't. Damn it.
You responded to...
Banana Nego?
Yeah.
I don't know, some new guy.
Upset.
He was complaining. So I was like...
Just keep saying no.
Here you go. I don't know. Anyway, guys, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up. Do you want to start with the Iran stuff or the election executive order?
Let's do Iran stuff because, it was his big statement tonight. I think that's what people got top of mind.
All right. Well, I don't even know where to begin. I think today marked the 1 month anniversary of the Iran discombobulation. It was like 30 days ago, 31 days ago, whatever it was. And it's been a whirlwind. As we've been saying, Trump has been carpet bombing the narrative. And it came out yesterday, and a lot of rumors, like in the middle of all these rumors of we're going to have boots on the ground over there. Trump has been all over the map on True Social. Comes out that he's going to be doing a live address. Some people are like he's going to announce boots on the ground. Some people like he's going to announce the end of the war. I didn't watch the whole thing. I did watch some of it. But even leading up to it, I was like, this is probably just going to be a compilation of all of his True Social posts that he's been doing. And he's just going to come and read them on air because not everybody follows Trump on True Social.
Right.
And it seems like that is very much what we got. Trump says we're 2 to 3 weeks away from ending the war. Trump, I think I saw he threatened to, if Iran doesn't make a deal, that we're going to bomb all the energy stuff over there. Like
we're going to send them back to the Stone Ages was a direct quote.
Yes.
Which could be a time machine, We don't know if he is being literal, that we are going to gather up the bad Iranians and shoot them back through a time portal is possible.
That would be cool.
But it could be, he could have been being metaphorical and saying, we're going to do a bunch of bombings that are going to be very serious.
That would be the ultimate form of discombobulation, I believe, to send somebody back in time. But also, like, I've thought about this before. I used to think about this like oddly a lot when I was a kid. Like, if I went back in time with everything that I know now, I feel like I could just take over the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, depending how far back.
You realize what people just believe anything.
Yeah.
For God's sakes. Look at the Artemis thing. So you can, armed with that kind of knowledge, you just go back in time and become a rampant liar.
Yeah, or
get you real far.
Just like predict the future. You just got to remember a couple key events. Be like, this is going to happen then, this is going to happen then, this is going to happen then.
Yep.
All of a sudden, you're like an oracle, and people will believe you with anything you say.
Right. Probably get killed doing that.
Oh, I've thought about that too.
Careful about it.
Depending how far back you go, and if I can bring a weapon, like if I can bring just one 9mm, I only need one clip even. You just demonstrate that one time, and it's like, don't come near me, I'll instantly kill. You know what I mean? And then you're set. You're set. Nobody will touch you.
Yeah, I could see it.
You should write a book about this, man. This should be your next novel.
Yeah. Nobody's written any time travel novels.
Yeah.
There. It's a pretty sparse landscape.
I believe
but
it.
I mean, Trump, to your point about the True Social post, that's pretty much what it was. I saw almost all of it. Me and Zach jumped on stream afterwards and talked for about an hour there. So I'll try not to rehash that stuff, but the discombobulator, I think, is the initial takeaway. I mean, I quickly looked at the kind of market reactions. I go on Zero Hedge a lot for that because I consider them like one layer deeper than the mainstream media, and a lot of financial people follow Zero Hedge, and they basically always look at these things through the perspective of what are Trump's deployments going to do to financial markets, and they came away from this saying nobody knows. And they were posting, you know, on the one hand, Trump is saying we're going to send Iran back to the Stone Ages. On the other hand, he was saying we kind of won, it's sort of over, and it might be over soon, but it might not be over soon. And, you know, that's one of the many, many narratives spinning out of this. I think we talked about it in the Badlands chat the other night. One of the things I said is Trump is scaring markets straight with a gay Ayatollah. And one of the many disclosures, sort of narrative or soft disclosures, no pun intended, coming out of this, I think is basically, you know, even the super serious intellectuals who fancy themselves above geopolitics and they don't talk about war and they don't talk about any of this stuff, but they focus on financial markets. I think they've gone through a really rough 2026 because they've been shown in no uncertain terms. It doesn't matter what your company's balance sheet is doing. It doesn't matter how many charts you drew. It doesn't matter like who you follow. It matters what Donald Trump tweets. That is what your stock is going to do tomorrow.
So true.
So like that, you know, that in and of itself is kind of a disclosure of, so what is the stock market if it does this every day?
It's a shell game, man. It's all rigged. That's what it is. I mean, one of the biggest stories from last week, I think it was right before Trump came out and had that True Social post about, I think it was like we're negotiating or something, or no, maybe
he keeps saying they're negotiating, and the Iranians are like, no, we're not.
I don't remember what it was, but there was like a huge either stock purchase or stock sell that was like timed 15 minutes before Trump made this big announcement, and they made a lot of money doing it. And so everybody's like, well, holy shit, there's a little, you know, insider knowledge here going on. That's illegal. With the Iran stuff, there's a couple interesting things. First of all, today, I think it was one of the guys who's calling himself a president of Iran or something. And we don't know who Trump is negotiating with, but he wrote this like open letter to Americans, kind of calling out our government. And I mean, obviously there's some psyops, some lies and all bullshit going on in there. But I could see how some people who want to hate Trump will find that to be pretty compelling, because there's some of the stuff in there I was like, yeah, even though I like Trump, I hate our government. Like I hate a lot of the things that you're talking about. So I agree with some of these things, but it's just interesting that comes out about an hour or two before Trump makes his statement. But another thing I find interesting is, and this is very much in line with Trump's rhetoric about the war in general, is him talking about, 2 to 3 weeks and this war will be done. But also, if Iran doesn't come to the table and negotiate, we are going to bomb all these things.
But we're already negotiating.
Yeah. So like, where are we actually at in these negotiations? Are you actually negotiating with somebody? They'll never tell us. Why do you have how do you know that your set timeline of 2 to 3 weeks is even a thing? If you're saying all you need is Iran to come to the table, could it go longer? I mean, there's so many question marks. When we first kicked this thing off, you know, it was just a couple days, you know, it's just an operation, just a military thing, real quick, we'll be done. And a lot of people on True Social who are justifying it were speaking that rhetoric. The goalposts have shifted so damn far since the first weekend of the war. It's almost shocking, and nothing on social media really truly shocks me anymore. But it's almost amazing how the grifting capability of people to justify some of these things. It's ridiculous.
Well,
yeah, nobody knows.
I agree with that, but the caveat I would put on it, the way I frame it is the people who drive me crazy are the ones who believe everything we are being told is happening in reality. If you believe that, then the hypocrisy is unbelievable.
Yes.
If you do not believe that, then I believe it is possible to sort of cheer for what Trump is doing if what you think Trump is doing is not what he says he's doing. And that's the weird irony that I think is going on here, where like I spent all of March writing about how Trump in particular was navigating the Iran thing and kicking it off and piloting it mostly from a narrative perspective. I know you and Chris have talked about that a lot on Saturday nights. I think I have pretty similar framing to how he sees it. But basically, I think Trump is disarming global conflicts. I don't pretend to know exactly how he's doing it in every mechanism, and certainly didn't see every detail of this stuff coming. But on the macro, I did say in January, well, they told you Iran is next, so it looks like Iran is next. And I said, if we're watching a disarmament operation, then there's a few markers I would look for if it was similar to, Midnight Hammer in 2025 and Absolute Resolve with Venezuela in January. One of the markers, it brings me back to your point about the letter by the Iranian leader, de facto leader, was look for...
I don't know if we can call him that.
Look for Trump and Iran to be the ones piloting the narrative and codifying each other's narratives. And I think that is the case. There are people that disagree with me there because they're like, well, they're disagreeing with each other constantly. What I mean by codifying each other's narratives is when Donald Trump says an event has occurred, the first people who confirm that the event occurred is Iran. And then you've got everybody else in the narrative coming in on a delay. The EU, NATO, allies, Israel, they all come in on a delay. At the beginning of the conflict, they've kind of stopped doing this because I think they realized they can't beat Trump in the narrative. The first week or two, remember, there were many instances where Trump was like, we just bombed this facility. And Israel would say, no, we didn't. And Trump would say, yes, we did. And we actually did it super hard. And Iran would come out and say, yeah, man, they bamboozled us there, but we're going to get them back. So now everyone's kind of gotten out of his way. So the way I look at that is the discombobulator is sparing no one. Everybody, the good thing about this is that the battle space, when you're talking about the info war, everybody's kind of revealing what their principles are, right? Whatever you think is going on in Iran, if you think it's all very literal, then you've probably gone pretty far out on a ledge of how you feel about those actual things happening, for better or worse. And, some of us think a lot of this is narrative. And when I say disarmament operation, I'm not being literal in terms of weaponry. I personally am a crazy kook who believes that Donald Trump is disarming the reasons for forever wars. And he's just going down the list. I think Chris has said some similar things to this. And, when it comes to timeline, to your point, what I've been using the term narrative time a lot and saying, is that what we're looking at? Is it less that Trump has a very specific timeline in mind, and it's more that they're looking at how long do people commit to this narrative? How long does NATO commit to this narrative? How long does Israel commit to the narrative? I don't know.
We're probably backing out of NATO. That's one of the topics we could also discuss tonight. Just to kind of show that everything we're getting from everywhere is kind of bullshit. I want to show you this video that was on Fox News earlier. Take a listen to this.
Well, we've been watching the Supreme Court. Israel is being pounded by Iran. Sirens sounding over Tel Aviv as a barrage of missiles hit the nation. Let's bring in Jonathan Hunt with more. Jonathan.
Kaylee, Israel in general and Tel Aviv in particular have been under almost constant bombardment throughout the day today. One of the most intense bombardments, in fact, since the very early days of this war. Just about an hour ago, we had an hour-long series of sirens. We watched as the interceptors were launched from this area at those missiles, which came in one after another from Iran. And this, remember,
So the reason I think this is funny is because the rhetoric we've been getting from Trump and Trump, the admin, since the beginning is like the first weekend, we took out all their leaders. We took out all their we got all their bases. We got all the bombs, and we got all of their rocket launchers. We got all the weapons. We got all the rockets, all the launchers. They can't do anything anymore. And yet now we're getting stories from media that's like, we haven't seen Israel get hit this hard yet. Like, this is reminiscent of the first day. It's just constant. So what's actually going on here? And one of the more interesting takes that I think I've seen came from Ghost, and it was earlier, I think it was or the end of last week, where he's like, what if Trump is fighting a proxy war with Israel using Iran to do it? And I love that kind of thought. Like, I don't know if that's actually true, but I like that train of thought, that line of thinking, because Trump is never doing what you actually think he's doing. And if, every country has their issues, and a big one that people are talking a lot about is the Israel one. We've talked about this so many times.
Yeah.
What if that is, more in line with what's going on, considering we don't actually know what the hell is actually going on at all over there? We don't know how much of any of this is real, to what degree. We just can't believe anything. But I think it's interesting to see this clip.
The funny thing about Ghost's framing there, or potential framing, is I can take that on, but again, this is just belief. We can't know, like you said. I would still frame that as a narrative war, largely narrative. I would say that, maybe Trump is fighting a proxy war against Israel, and that war is a story. The people in chat are talking about it. That clip you just played, I get that it's 1 minute, and you've seen blurry social media videos of like buildings burning and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying none of that has happened, but the words that the human beings on the television camera are saying in that clip you played are entirely divorced from what is literally occurring in their vicinity while they are saying that. They have no B-roll that they're playing. They have a guy saying, we are getting pounded by missiles. And then in the next sentence, he says, yeah, we saw them up in the sky, and then the interceptors got them. So you didn't get pounded by missiles. So you're literally saying the opposite of what, is going on. So yeah, we've seen all these things.
This is this is an AI video I made.
This is an AI. There you go.
This is back in June.
I didn't even know that was AI.
June of 2025. I think me and Chris did this live on air. He's like, we should do an AI video.
That looks more real than what they usually. That looks a little too photo real, I would say. You're supposed to throw that through a couple potato, like 360p.
I'm gonna retweet this bad boy.
Videos, and that makes it more authentic, right? Because it's 2026. Like, there's no way anybody in a nation of tens of millions would have like an iPhone 16.
No.
And would take a crisp video of anything that's happening, because, well, of course, they can't even get radio signals out at this point, or cell signals, or anything like that.
They can't afford that because they're too busy buying off social media influencers over here.
Yeah, right. So it's all pretty absurd. And in terms of the proxy war framing, I think that's exactly what's going on, but I think it's narrative war. And I think that, we can get into the NATO stuff later on. Israel is obviously a lead into that. But I think... that this kind of runs along with my initial framing of the conflict, which is to say, look for Donald Trump and the Iranian regime, whoever that may be, on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Look for them to lead the rest of the world on this story, and the rest of the world have no fucking idea how to navigate the story. And the only two that seem to have any idea what's going on are Iran and Donald Trump, which you might think makes sense. But in a very real geopolitical conflict, every country anywhere would know intimately what is going on there based on their intelligence and their militaries. And nobody really seems to, except for Trump and disembodied Iranian ayatollahs in hiding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another interesting aspect to this that we're seeing kind of in the offshoots is the Ukraine situation. And Trump has threatened, I'm going to stop sending money and weapons to Ukraine unless NATO gets involved with this conflict. But just thinking back to how the United States and the entire world handled the Ukraine situation when Biden was in office, to how they're responding to what Trump is doing in Iran, and it's just polar opposites. And this is a conflict we're actually involved in. These people are supposed to be our allies, but I mean, everybody kind of saw this coming. We were talking about Trump pulling out of NATO back in 2023, and we were talking sovereign alliance stuff, and now he's talking about that himself here in 2026. So it's not surprising to see this divide between the two. We really saw it back when his national security strategy came out, and he was like, yeah, you guys are basically being taken over by immigrants. We don't even know if you're going to be allies of ours here in the next decade. So we're going to focus on our hemisphere. and now we're over there. They're struggling economically. They're struggling for so many reasons, but they won't even like get in here. Trump is trying to get them involved while also saying we don't need you because it's already over. It's just the weirdest narrative warfare going on. But I'm curious to see how this, like, it would be very interesting to see the Iran situation be resolved by also resolving the Ukraine conflict at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or the other way around. And Zach and I talked about this a little while ago where, Zach had said, hey, Trump is, there was headlines over the last week. Zelensky's out there saying Trump has told me or pressured me to give up the Donbass. And you and I have talked about for 4 years that that the deal that will come to fruition or be codified at the end of the Ukraine conflict is going to be identical to the one Putin offered at the beginning. Now we're being told in April or March 2026 by Volodymyr Zelensky directly that Donald Trump's deal that he is offering Zelensky is the same one as Putin. And we said this on this show at the time, that Trump is going to offer the same deal, but the narrative is going to be that Donald Trump made peace, even though he's just telling them, do what Russia wants, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of this. But the NATO part, and when you talk about Iran, clearly it's becoming more clear to everybody. I mean, I was writing about this March 1st when this happened, but I said, well, who's in the pincer here? What's the pincer between Trump and Putin? It's the EU, it's NATO. I've been writing about that for 4 years. It's the entire premise of the Righteous Russia series, is that those two are putting Europe in a pincer. Actually, because of devolution, they do not have American military power projection on the one side, and Russia, who does have military power projection and energy power projection on the other side. What does Europe have? Nothing. And we've been screaming this from the rooftops for 4 years, but I would say we give the normies a lot of shit because they don't know anything, and we give the media a lot of shit. But I would say if there is one thing the entire mindscape is starting to agree on right now, it is that NATO has no power projection capabilities at all. And Trump now is granting himself narrative shielding to not help them with Russia because, as you said, they're not helping him with Iran. So why would we help them? It's not our fight, right? That's Keir Starmer can't shut up about how this isn't our fight. Okay, well, Ukraine's not our fight either. Yeah. So fuck you. And how on earth are they going to refute that when Trump just says, hey, you motherfuckers, I told you I wanted help in the Strait of Hormuz and you told me to F off. And the other thing Zach and I talked about, you know who doesn't need the Strait of Hormuz? Us.
Yeah, Trump keeps saying that too.
Yeah, so it's like Europe is in a pickle here. And I think while we talk about narrative warfare and all this stuff, and I talk about it more than anybody, on an actual level, I think Europe is in a very precarious position. I think Trump and Putin and Xi know that the leaders in Europe are in a very precarious position. And what I am most curious to see is how far does this go in terms of the European sort of populace? Because, man, people think $4 a gallon of gas in the U.S. is rough. Zach was talking about the Germans can't heat their homes. Like,
seriously?
Well, luckily it's getting warmer, but if this was winter, they're already heading in that direction.
Yeah.
So I think it's putting them in a very real version of the pincer that we are feeling more of the lagging effects of. And I think this is a bit of a game of geopolitical chicken where Trump is like, yeah, you can manipulate the price of oil a little bit in US markets, but we produce our own energy. But what the hell is Europe going to do when it comes to its markets, its economy, and its national defense? It doesn't have any.
Yeah, a couple of other interesting aspects of this is of who's like taking a lot of the slings and arrows, I suppose you could say. Like one of the byproducts of this conflict is the effect it's having on China. The fact we went to Venezuela first, got that oil situation wrapped up, and now we're doing Iran. Those are like the two primary providers of oil to China. Mm-hmm. They're kind of fucked. Like if we're being honest, like their energy situation is kind of fucked depending on how this goes. But I was thinking about this earlier today. You know how we always talk about Russia and their special military operation into Ukraine and how that was something that it needed to be done at some point to deal with the corruption and take out like a deep state, hub there.
Yeah.
it had to happen, but it couldn't happen while Trump was in office. So Russia, I mean, it made sense that Russia was going to be the ones to do that. And I know not everybody agrees with that. Even some people on Badlands don't agree with that framing, but that's what we
There's
believe.
wrong people. That's okay. We allow them.
It's okay. Everybody has their opinions, and that's fine here. Friction is good. I know I upset Adam Chester my nuts in the chat because he was giving me shit and I gave it back and he couldn't handle it. And so I think he told me to piss off. But anyway, the fact that they did that while Trump was out of office, like we've talked about that so many times and how that was the only way it could go down. If Russia did that while Trump was in office, it could have looked bad. If we did it while Trump was in office, like that could have been bad in terms of like leading up to the 2020 election, the COVID and everything going on. Trump did need to legitimately have the mandate and will of the people in order to implement something like devolution. But if we're thinking game theory again, and you're Trump, you're Russia, and whoever, and you're like, okay, well, there's two, maybe even more than two, but at least let's just talk Iran and Ukraine now. Two huge hubs of corruption for the deep state, lots of BS all over the place. Both of them need to be resolved in some form or fashion at some point. Russia will do Ukraine, but United States, you need to do Iran. And so in terms of like, okay, well, when are we going to do that? You're not going to do it Trump's first term. Look at the blowback Trump is getting right now from doing this. Can you imagine if he did this in his first term? I mean, he may not have gotten another opportunity. It had to happen now. Now, why would he do it before the midterms? Who knows? But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if Russia had to be the ones to do that, then what were they going to get in return? Like maybe we were the ones that had to be the ones to do this now. And we're just seeing some of that, the broader sovereign alliance geopolitical stuff kind of play out here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it was we recorded the Blitz, by the way, badlands.substack.com. The Blitz is exclusive to the Substack, goes out every Saturday. The last episode I recorded with Ash was on last Friday. And similar point I made was even us in the info war, like we see things the way we see things in this audience, but we're Americans, most of us, and we do see things through a Trump lens a lot of the time. And often when I'm talking about the Sovereign Alliance, I just say like, hey, just play a game like you just did of just earnestly try to think of the position of Russia or of China. And like, while still keeping the Sovereign Alliance framework in mind and what is fair and unfair. And to your point, I totally agree with that, Russia took immense reputational damage
and
from
probably
2022
for a little bit.
Economic
damage.
There were real consequences. They got sanctioned the shit out of them. I think that was part of the geopolitical gambit that was going on. I think all of that was pre-planned. And actually, I think the Iran situation has a lot to do with this. Again, Scotty Besson, I don't know if we'll have time tonight, but he's dropping the most signal of anybody consistently. And he keeps kind of telling you what's really going on here. But I definitely agree with that framing. To your point, look at the blowback Trump is getting right now. And the way I had framed this on the Blitz was, we like to think, like in the InfoWar, Truth Community, Q community, we like to think of like Donald Trump going into secret meetings with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, which I'm not belittling. I think those happened. And being like, listen, motherfuckers, here's how it's going to go. And I don't think that's how those meetings went.
No.
I think that Donald Trump went into those meetings and Vladimir Putin is sitting there being like, I have been fighting you, meaning the US, the CIA, the deep state. You are the deep state, US government. You are like the crown jewel of the deep state. The American military industrial complex is the power projection arm of the deep state. It is responsible for more wanton death over the last few decades than any regime in the world. And I know that usually hurts one person's feeling anytime I say that. But I think that this is part of the slings and arrows sort of refrain Trump uses, right? We used to talk about like, oh, the media is mean to Trump and that's the slings and arrows he has to take. Look at him now. Half of his own base is like, dude, and on the surface, you understand why. People are like, you're putting boots on or you're going to war in the Middle East, you're doing all this shit. And I think that's part of the bargain here of, Russia and China being like, we're not going into Iran. Like, there's no fucking way. Or we're not saying we're going into Iran. And the narrative wouldn't even allow for that because they're open allies with them. So it had to be Trump. Just like to your point, it had to be Russia at that time. And the only thing I would disagree with, and we're early on, we'll see, is there's enough signal to suggest that China is not being affected on an energy level in the way that the geopolitical super geniuses keep saying they are. And I know, like, Steve Bannon keeps saying it and deploys his narratives. They are letting Chinese tankers through the strait. So, like, according to what we've been told. And the other major thing is what broke late last week heading into the weekend is Iran is letting tankers through the strait, supposedly, as long as they settle in yuan. So for everybody talking about how Donald Trump is owning China with this move has given more geopolitical weight to the Chinese currency than any geopolitical event in world history. And it has weakened the petrodollar proportionally. And I think that's the plan. So again, all the sovereign alliance players, like Russia and China, are literally benefiting the most right now from what's going on in Iran. And
even
we
the
are
gas
not.
Stuff?
Sorry?
The gas stuff? Like they're getting oil?
Well, Russia is the primary supplier over there, or was to Europe. So a lot of the reports you'll look up out there from like all the military analysts and all that kind of shit, Russia has basically made a surplus of 3-4x their normal energy profits over the last month, and they've supposedly, according to these military reports, invested all of that right back into or replenished their war effort. So this is part of the thing. And by the way, these narrative deployments, most of them are coming out of Zelensky. So Zelensky is parading around again, doing his like hat in his hand thing with NATO, and he is saying Russia has never been in a stronger position because now they're getting flush with all this energy cash.
Yeah, I get that.
And yeah, that's not
China?
the same thing with China. China does not benefit from the energy situation, but their currency is being strengthened because all of the trade partners that are passing through the strait are settling the currency in yuan. So it's the first time ever that there's a petro yuan. And that was literally when Xi Jinping rose to power, like 14 years ago now, one of his stated goals was to reduce global reliance on the petrodollar and get oil trade to settle in other currencies, including the yuan, which is exactly what Trump is allowing right now.
Interesting. I want to play this clip. I think this was from earlier today from Trump.
The problem that we have is we really don't need any more oil. It'd be nice to take it, but we don't need it. And we say to Europe and all these countries that do, China gets 90% of its oil from the Strait of Hormuz, and they should be policing their own strait. We shouldn't be policing it for them. We have been for years, and we're getting ready to get out of there. But they should, all the damages. We have done such a job that they're really a very weak country. They've gone from the bully of the Middle East to essentially a weak country. And I say, you guys, why should we? The problem with the strait is they can have one terrorist there with a machine gun someplace, and they'll say, oh, it's not totally clean, So let them do it. Let France do it. They get a lot of oil from the strait. Let the European countries do it. Let South Korea, who is not helpful to us, by the way, let South Korea, we only have 45,000 soldiers in harm's way over there right next to a nuclear force. Let South Korea do it.
Another way to look at this too is, and again, just to say this, I am against our involvement in a foreign war. I feel like I have to preface this sometimes just to, make sure people don't think I'm pushing too much hopium here. But now that we're there, like I'm fully supportive, and obviously I can try to figure out what's going on. If you look at Trump's national security strategy and the whole regions of responsibility, the Middle East, these people like Europe, China, the people he's calling to like, hey, come down here and get involved and do this thing yourself, like police this thing. We don't want to be here. By starting this conflict and then almost like trying to pull away, if that's what we do, again, no idea if that's what's going to happen. Nobody actually knows what's going on here. But it's almost like he's forcing their hand to be responsible for their own region, which I think is pretty baller.
That's, yeah, I in that kind of Iran series I started that I've been writing all month, the one I'm working on right now is really all about that, is about the region's responsibility idea and what is the pincer, like what pincer is he putting them in. And it kind of looks like, to your point, we're we're not fully withdrawn, even according to the narrative, and there's still some possum going on here. But clearly the threat that Trump is communicating is that. It's not really that he's directly threatening Europe in any meaningful way. He's just threatening to make them fend for themselves. And that's not just an effective threat, it's a humiliating one for the entire narrative that collectivists and for globalism. And, you know, if I'm looking for like, what is the macro concept that is being irreparably harmed and destroyed as a result of everything that's going on here? And it is the concept of globalism. It's over. There's no going back to that. And that's like, again, the brilliance of what Trump is doing to me and Putin and Xi is that you can be a liberal who hates him. And in the current situation, you will come to the same conclusion as an ultra-Trump MAGA guy, which is Europe needs to take care of itself. And you are literally seeing this in European politics right now, where you've got like people that I do not think are our friends. Friedrich Merz in Germany is saying this, who's like a deep state as they come, in my opinion. And he's out there being like, Ursula von der Leyen, they're out there saying, we are weak. Donald Trump had called our bluff, and he's right, and we need to do something about it urgently, or it doesn't matter all the words we say at podiums, like we're screwed.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting stuff. I'm very curious, you know, to see how Trump wraps this up whenever he does, because I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. The way he's been, you know, completely all over the map with the narrative. When he finally does wrap this up, I feel like it's almost going to be anticlimactic because he's already like narratively wrapped it up every single day, like saying it's over, you know? So it's going to be interesting to see how it wraps up and who is actually left there kind of holding the bag when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
And another one more thing, going back to Ghost's or point, the post I talked about earlier about, you know, is he fighting a proxy war with Israel? When he talks about the bully of the Middle East, he could also be talking about Israel when he says that in a lot of ways. I know some people don't like to hear that, but it's true. And so however this wraps up, if Israel is actually getting bombed, how they resolve things within their own country and then within the Middle East is going to be interesting to see too. But
yeah, and Ghost has talked a lot for the last couple of years about definitely the sovereign alliance player that I don't talk about as much as the big three. If there is a four, it's Saudi Arabia for sure under bin Salman. I know a lot of people in this audience understand that, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think more in the aftermath. To your point, they are the ones I'm really looking at as being the most believable in terms of enforcing some kind of macro region of responsibility to the same degree that China can do that in the East, Russia can do that in their corridor, the US can do that in kind of Pax Americana in the Americas. But culturally, politically, none of them can or probably should do that in the middle. It's almost like all of them have agreed, if there's this alliance going on, they've all kind of agreed, like, it can't be this thing where we are in charge of this energy corridor and these countries, especially these countries that we've been blitzkrieging for generations now, we got to get the fuck out of there. And if you're ever going to give the Middle East a chance to truly be restored culturally, politically, economically, they need to do it themselves, but you need a power player to really lift them up to do that. And I think Saudi Arabia are the only feasible option there.
I agree. But again, we'll see. I want to get a quick ad read in from Wumble Wallet, and then I think we should maybe talk about that election executive order. Unless there's any other geopolitical stuff you want to get into before we do that.
One quote. Great quote today from Donald Trump. He gave one of his many exclusives to whichever, the Telegraph in the UK. He said about NATO and the EU, quote, "I always knew they were a paper tiger, and Putin knows that too, by the way." And just one of those Trump-Putin comms that are getting more and more direct.
Who did he give that interview to?
The Telegraph in the UK. So he told one of the UK's top newspapers, "You are a paper tiger, and the two people on the game board who know this the most are me and Vladimir Putin." So kind of like a pincer between Putin and Trump.
Kind of, just a little bit. All right, let's get a quick word from Rumble Wallet. Guys, we've been talking about Rumble for a long time now. We've been streaming here since my first stream on my personal platform, which I later turned into Badlands Media, was, I believe, back in September of 2021. And the entire time, Rumble has just been so great to work with. They're always there when we need tech support, and they're always looking for ways, creative ways, to help support the creators on the platform. And one of the ways they have done that is through the donations that people give to streamers while they're live. A lot of these, platforms out there, YouTube, Twitch, they can take up to 50% of donations. Even Rumble, with the Rumble rant, takes up to 20%. But this new thing they're doing with the Rumble wallet is giving 100% of what you give when you donate in Bitcoin, Tether USD, or Tether Gold stable coins. Tip shows up in the chat, just like all the rest of them, and we always read those on air. All you got to do is go to the App Store on your phone, download Rumble Wallet, or you can also go to wallet.rumble.com, get yourself a little Bitcoin in your own personal wallet, and then send it to your favorite creators. And it actually doesn't even have to be live. You can do it off air, but if you want us to read it,
right,
you got to do it while we're live, which is always awesome. But anyway, yeah, big shout out to Rumble for creating this program. I don't think there's many other platforms out there that I can think of that are allowing crypto donations like this. So really cool. They're always working to improve the creator economy, and this is one of the ways they're doing it. Wallet.rumble.com, get in the App Store, and show some love to Badlands. And thank you, Rumble and Rumble Wallet, for the support.
Shout out to Chris Pavlovsky, too, besides all the usual reasons we do. But I like that I see him sniping a bit on social media lately, because he has picked up on the narrative trend that unfortunately much of the InfoWar falls prey to, and that is the demonization of both AI and Bitcoin. And he was posting the other day and saying, look at who is getting into this shit, and look at who is really upset about it. Like, stuff is not popular. These are those reverse indicators that I talk about. When all the globalists are very upset about a technology, probably look at it.
Yeah. Chris is good stuff. Should we do the election executive order? I think we should. Because I've been itching to talk executive orders. I've been waiting for something to come for a while. Jonesing. And I'll be honest, like, this executive order, it's a great start. It's a little underwhelming in terms of all the things that are wrong with our elections and what we want to happen. This doesn't accomplish it all, but it's like the initial thing. And there's some interesting aspects to it that I think are worth discussing, and stuff we can get into, even relating back to Trump's first term. But this is what it is. We won't read all my highlights, but we'll read some of them. Ensuring citizenship verification and integrity in federal elections. This just came out yesterday. Now, keep in mind, leading up to this, we've had this huge psyop over the Save America Act, where Trump has been calling on and super supportive of Congress doing the Save America Act, voter ID, non-citizens can't vote. I don't remember the mail-in ballot stuff, like getting rid of all that. Yeah, valid ID, proof of citizenship, no mail-in ballots.
No transgender for everyone.
Yeah, they tried to sneak that in there. No mutualization, as Chris Paul keeps pointing out. But we've been saying for a while now, like, he's going along with this. He's drafting off of it, but he doesn't actually want it. So this executive order, guys, he could have done this at any point. He could have done this in his first term. He could have done it when he first got back in office the second term. He could have done it the second that they started going gangbusters with the Save America Act. But no, he kind of let that ride for a while until it's at the point now where it's clearly not going to pass. And whatever, the Senate sucks, Congress sucks. It's all illegitimate. But now he comes out with this executive order, and it's only focusing on one part of it. Like I said, the Save America Act covers valid ID, proof of citizenship, and no mail-in ballots. This is mostly proof of citizenship, and it's mostly database stuff, voter roll stuff, which I think is most interesting. And there's a little bit with the United States Postal Service and mail-in ballots. but yeah, let's read through a couple aspects of this, and feel free to interject at any point. The federal government's constitutional obligation to guarantee a Republican form of government to every state in the union. I thought this was interesting because he pointed this out twice. Like at the beginning of every executive order, the president lists like the authorities which he draws upon to implement the executive order. And he says in here, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution, laws, all these things. And then he specifies again the constitutional thing. And when you go to Article 4, Section 4, the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of them against invasion. That's almost the part that I find more interesting than the phrase that he actually listed in here, because one of the core tenets of the devolution theory is, I believe Trump knew the election was going to be stolen in 2020. I believe he took moves to capture evidence of that. I believe he implemented some sort of continuity government plan in the aftermath of that. And what we've witnessed is basically some sort of attempted hostile takeover or invasion, subversion of our government. And Trump implemented safeguards, guardrails to combat that. And we're still seeing the effects of that here into the second term. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. The right to vote in federal elections is reserved exclusively for citizens of the United States. Federal government has an unavoidable duty under Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States to enforce federal law, which includes preventing violations of federal criminal law and maintaining public confidence in election outcomes. I just think that's kind of funny because with each passing election, I would argue that the confidence in our elections only goes lower.
Yeah, well, if you were looking for like these markers that we can't codify them in some sort of literal way. We always theorize, though, that Trump and team probably have markers that we are never going to have access to, and that's one of them. What is the state of the collective psyche, the American psyche, when it comes to trust in elections? You can look at polls and all that. I mean, that's like a snapshot, but I'm just saying in terms of what is the real state of mindset. And, you know, it's actually kind of funny because before we go further, I consume a lot of Bitcoin content. I watch podcasts, different things like that while I'm working.
Do you watch the Money Show?
No, not usually.
So
no, but one of them
like standards. It's not just any
exactly.
Bitcoin
Not
content.
anything. It's like not just trash. No, G's great. But one guy that I know G likes and I think knows on some level, Jack Mallers, I've mentioned before. He runs a Bitcoin company. He's kind of a fiery kid. He's like 31, but really smart guy. He does a Monday podcast, and I don't take everything he says geopolitically at face value. Well, I take it at face value. I don't think there's a lot of value in what he says on the one hand, because he clearly is one of those guys that just thinks Trump is retarded and all politicians are retarded. But what I find signal about some of these conversations going on this month is there is clearly a growing subset of people with very high reach who I would consider earnest, who are telling their audiences proudly that they do not vote or anything like that. And Mallers was one of them, and he was talking about like the Republicans and the Democrats are the same thing, and the only way to beat the system is to opt out of it. And I see that rhetoric as not the same as subversive, Trump is bad, we need a more responsible GOP president, right? That's a lot of the subversion Trojan horse play. These are just guys saying like, whoever it is, we don't have trust in what's going on here. Bitcoin is obviously a trustless system. That's why it was created. So they're going to lean in that direction a lot faster than others. Somebody said Nick Fuentes in the chat. If you're talking about the second point I made, yes, Fuentes is one of those guys I would consider the bad kind of Trojan horse, where he is trying to blow up the Trump movement, in my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. That's not really what some of these other independent people are saying. They're just talking about, man, I don't have trust in any of this stuff. So anyway, it's all just to say, if there's any timeline on this stuff that is not just set on a specific date of actually addressing these things, I would think it rests on that foundation. It rests on where are the people's trust in the election system at? And it shouldn't be sort of controversial to say, especially all the Q people in the audience, you've heard a billion times, or you've said a billion times, only at the precipice, timing is everything. I saw it in our chat a bunch of times tonight. Well, yeah, that probably means that Trump is looking to decrease faith in American elections in order to cultivate the mandate to do something about it. Wouldn't that be logical? Would Trump want faith in American elections to be high if he wants to reform American elections? I mean, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are all great points. When it comes to, like, you were saying where people are at with the election stuff, it's so weird because the truth community, the Q community, the people who watch Badlands, they're the ones who I think should know the most that elections are fraudulent, right? Like,
Yeah,
we talk about it the most. We've been talking about it going back to 2020. But yet, and we've had this conversation, I don't even know if I want to say it because we've said this so many times and it always just gets everybody all hot and bothered. But half of those people like want to just continue doing that because they somehow trust the system. Like, we know they're fraudulent, but we trust it to resolve itself. But that's a conversation for now. Let's save that for the guard panel.
Yeah.
And we'll keep going into this because this is where it starts to get interesting when it comes to the voter lists. This is one of the things Trump really tried to get a handle on back in his first term. If you remember, I think it was in my Devolution part 20. Let me pull it up quick. 21. I talked about what some of the moves Trump made in his first term, and one of them was the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity, May 11th, 2017. Just like he very recently put J.D. Vance in charge of his fraud commission or task force, he put Mike Pence in charge of his election integrity task force. And they went after a lot of these things, like the confidence, things that are affecting the confidence of the integrity of the voting process, improper voter registrations and improper voting, including fraudulent voter registrations, casting ballots in multiple jurisdictions, like just a laundry list of the more physical, technical aspects of registering to vote, the lists, those things. He got fought tooth and nail with this, and he ended up disbanding it and sending a lot of the info over to the Department of Homeland Security, all the info they gathered. And so now back to this executive order. Look who's the people doing it. To the extent feasible, the Secretary of Homeland Security, the same entity who got all the data from the first time Trump did this in 2017, through the Director of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and in coordination with the Commissioner of the SSA, shall take appropriate action to compile and transmit to the chief election official in each state a list of individuals confirmed to be the United States citizens who will be above the age of 18 at the time of an upcoming federal election and who maintain a residence in the subject state citizenship list. The state citizenship list shall be derived from federal citizenship and naturalization records, SSA records, SAVE data, and other relevant federal databases. The citizenship list shall be updated and transmitted to state election officials no fewer than 60 days before each regularly scheduled federal election or promptly upon request by a state in connection with any special federal election. Now, I think, and I believe, I'm going to have to double check this, and maybe while you're talking, I'll do it. I'm pretty sure the Save America Act was almost inverted. It was up to the states to compile their own voter registration lists and, compile them, clean them up, and all those things. What this does is, like, the federal government's like, no, we're going to give you your eligible voter list. These are the people who are citizens confirmed, and these are the ones that are eligible to vote in your election. And then from there, you go, you do as you will, or essentially. The Save America Act was the other way around. And this is why it's notable, because it also ties back into that original executive order.
That would be very interesting if that's the case, because while you and Chris in particular on Saturdays have been talking about the SAVE Act for months and being kind of not just a rug, but potentially a Trojan horse, to use that term again. A lot of that framing comes from looking at who is pushing it really hard besides Trump, because we understand that he is pushing things he needs to push at various times right up until he pulls them. Again, not everybody's going to get on board with that, but this would be one of the mechanisms of why. Again, Chris uses the term total inversion a lot, and it just blows my mind, whatever people think of this specific legislation, the SAVE Act, that people in the truth community often do not understand that the enemy, the most effective lies of the enemy are gilded in truth, right? They are gilded in the story that you are most likely to accept. Like they don't think that writing Ketanji Brown Jackson in the headlines is what is going to win them the nation back from the MAGA movement. They've figured that out, guys. They think that pretending to advance the MAGA agenda while doing anything but that is going to win them back the country. And by them, I mean the bad guys, the Uniparty. And I did want to address one comment in the chat on this note. HR Blamond just had a question earlier and said, because I mentioned the word precipice, and said, where is it? Just responded to her. Said, I was hoping the precipice was during the Biden years. How is creating the precipice during Trump's time in office helpful? I said, absolutely necessary, because most in MAGA have gone back to trusting the GOP super hard. It's more important than ever to bring on the precipice. It's clearly needed. So again, if like the SAVE Act would be a great example of this. If you're right about this mechanism and maybe other mechanisms here, then the very story, the very narrative that is being pushed by the truth community to save everybody and to make our elections legitimate might literally have been designed to do the exact opposite. And anybody in the truth community who has been questioning the veracity of the SAVE Act have been demonized by that community for doing so. So this is why, in my opinion, the precipice when it comes to voting and all that kind of stuff, yeah, you're damn right it should happen when Trump is around, because most people, unfortunately, that I follow in the InfoWar or used to have just gone back to vote Republican, like hold your nose and vote. And that's what the Great Awakening is. You were doing that in 2004. So I just don't know what is MAGA about that.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I wasn't fully listening to everything he said. I was trying to, but I wanted to find the Save America Act part where I was right about this. And shout out to DJ, the guy we game with on Sundays. He sent me down this path. He's been looking into this, and he's got the inversion aspect correct here. The Save America Act requires the state, like the requirements of this clause are met if the state or jurisdiction has submitted its voter registration list to the Department of Homeland Security. This executive order from Trump is the inversion of that completely. The Department of Homeland Security is the one submitting its list to the state. And I think that's pretty important.
So it looks like the SAVE Act could have been designed to shield elections from the president.
Very well could have been. And again, I just think it's so notable and interesting that this goes back to what Trump was trying to do the first time around. It's like he had the info. He knew where the fraud was. He's always known where the fraud was. And he attempted to do it and fix it and clean these things up. And he was just stonewalled at every opportunity. And then plus everything else going on in terms of like the narrative warfare and the impeachment stuff and all the psychological warfare campaigns against the American people for the last 7 years from the intelligence community. It makes a little more sense why he couldn't do something like this then, and it almost had to be this way kind of thing, letting it play out the way it did. But we'll see. Maybe we are getting the hose again, because again, this is nowhere near enough in terms of actually fixing our elections, but this is a good start. The Attorney General shall prioritize investigation and, as appropriate, the prosecution of state and local officials. To me, this part is like, okay, they're saying that they're going to prioritize going after people who are committing election fraud from within the election fraud infrastructure. And they also go on to talk about people actually doing the election fraud in terms of the people voting. But this is just like a, hey, Attorney General, please do these things. Do it really hard. Prosecute harder type thing, just like the vote harder thing. So not as important to me as the database stuff. To ensure the faithful execution of federal law, protect the integrity of the mail as a medium for transmitting federal election ballots, and establish uniform standards for mail-in and absentee ballot services implemented through the United States Postal Service. And this is where he gets into the mail-in ballot part. So keep in mind here, where I think we're going, based on what Trump has repeatedly said, is no mail-in ballots at all, except for very limited, use cases, right? Very limited. Yeah. No more mass mail-in ballots. But what this does is like fix the mail-in ballot system so that eventually, if we do get to that point where there hardly is any, the ones that we do have are at least somewhat trustworthy. Proposed provisions specifying that all outbound ballot mail must be mailed in an envelope that is A, marked as an official election mail, and then B, is automation compatible and bears a unique intelligent mail barcode or successor USPS technology that facilitates tracking and is consistent with other requirements of this section. Now, why I thought that was interesting is because
I know what you're going to pull up.
Is because of the United States Postal Service patent
Yeah.
on blockchain voting, where it says or successor, what does it say? Successor USPS technology.
Yeah.
This is a patent by the United States Postal Service. A voting system can use the security of blockchain and the mail to provide a reliable voting system. A registered voter receives a computer readable code in the mail and confirms identity and confirms correct ballot information in an election. System separates voter identification and votes to ensure vote anonymity and stores votes on a distributed ledger in a blockchain. It almost seems like this executive order accounts for that. Maybe I'm just looking way too much into it.
That's the first thing I thought of. Successor USPS technology. I mean, what else could it be?
Yeah, I don't know.
Some hypothetical future one.
Hold on. We got some retard in the chat trolling. I gotta get him out of there. Yeah, so that's interesting. Also, when it comes to this, when they're talking like barcodes and things on the mail-in ballots, like the envelopes, I always think of the watermarks or some sort of barcode system on the actual ballots itself too, where sometimes Trump has talked about that. And I know there's a lot of like speculation and, all the watermark ballots that we used and, Trump has all the data. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. I have no idea. But that's where my mind goes when I think of that.
Yeah. It's interesting too, just on the macro that obviously a lot of this stuff deals with citizenship. And this week and ongoing, probably for the rest of the year, well, at least through June, I would say, that's a major national storyline, right? Citizenship itself, we've got all of that going on. So it's like, the timing on these narratives, they tend to converge where we've got birthright citizenship, and it's like, wow, Trump signing executive orders and all this. And, again, there's people that are like, oh, why don't you trust the plan? It's like, I do trust that there's a plan, and we're trying to figure out what it is. And that's the fun part. Like, looking at stuff like this, when you get that section there that's talking about USPS technology, when we're talking about the Supreme Court and birthright citizenship all going on at the same time here, nobody here, especially us, and especially the guy who wrote the Devolution series, does not think there's a plan. We enjoyed talking about and trying to figure out what it is and which direction it's going in, rather than just saying that as your commentary all day, every day for 10 years. So, I don't know, like if there's some confusion about that still, like, why don't you trust the plan? It's like, what the fuck do you think this is? Trying to figure out what it is. Anyway, it is.
I saw somebody decoding an Eric Daughtry post where they found a building of 197 separate hospice and healthcare companies, and then 197 in one spot. And 89 of them are registered to a single address. 197 is supposedly 17, and then 89 is also 17 when you add those together. And it's a Q proof from Eric Daughtry, who was quote tweeting a Fox News episode.
Fox is pretty much like the epicenter of the awakening now, from what I've been told by people who did not exist in 2020 and came out in 2024 with massive Twitter accounts and became the new Q people.
I was saying today, I mean, Twitter, social media has always been bad, but like it is just getting so much worse. It's gone from, like, we used to talk about it as the marketplace of ideas, right? Like that's what they used to sell it as. And even I'll be honest, I was naive when I first got back onto Twitter, like the 6th time trying. They kept deleting my accounts. It's like, finally I'm on there. We can have these conversations. And Chris Paul, of course, was right. Like, it's still fake and gay, but it's so much worse than I even could have imagined. It's not the marketplace of ideas anymore. I said it's more like a slot machine of attention farming, attacks, and delusion, because literally imagine sitting down in a slot machine, and you're just trying to get those 3 numbers to pop up. Like every single time there's some combination of attention farmers or grifters. You get the breaking news brigade, You get all this stupid infighting, if you want to even call it infighting, because it seems like just controlled opposition drama, and then the delusional, like shitty, just insane decodes, and that's all it is. There's no like actual discourse. There's no really new information. It's all so repetitive and
one of the things, we've talked about this in so many different ways, or at least we've talked about it in a lot of the same ways that get repetitive to us, obviously. One of the ways I've thought of this a little differently lately is if I'm trying to provide some outreach, if some people are like, why do you think decodes are stupid? I don't think all decodes are stupid. Why do I think a lot of the decodes that we see out there these days are stupid? For me, one of the things I don't see talked about is that, let's say that a lot of these decodes are right and that they are accurately predicting future events, and that a lot of what you're doing online is following people who are going, this drop says this thing is going to happen, and then that thing happens in some way that satisfies.
It's literally never happened, but yeah.
Let's just say it, even for the sake of argument. I'm making the ultimate devil's advocate argument, and then I'm going to refute it. Let's say that if you do that for 10 years and you follow decodes, and then the decodes are always right, even though, as you said, they never are. But if they always were, what would you have learned at the end of all of this? And that is something that I think about a lot, right? So I'm not the world's foremost expert in anything, but I knew nothing about global energy trade 18 months ago. Now, I know 100 times what I knew at that time because I'm actively trying to figure out what is going on. And not just what's going on in geopolitics, but from the framing that I think there is a plan. And I think there is a sovereign alliance. There's a foundation there. That foundation is very good. You believe that there was a plan in 2020 to protect the country, to protect national essential functions, right? Having that foundation of belief in there being a plan is important, which is why I don't belittle that. But then my purpose for me is to try to figure out the mechanisms through which that's going to come to fruition, not because I want to be right the most, but because if you understand how everything is going to be fixed, you can reverse engineer that and understand how everything got so fucked up. And what I've realized in talking to people who only focus on decodes or listening to decodes exclusively is they don't know anything about anything. If you start to, for example, a lot of people in the chat tonight are like, man, Trump is really going hard at China. And then I'll hit them and say, is that the China that the Q drops say Trump is working with against the deep state? Could you tell me what you think is going on? They can't. They haven't thought about it, right? And that's the problem. There's no active thinking going on. If you come across a contradiction and the drops told you that there is an alliance between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, why are you then tweeting about how Donald Trump is really sticking it to Xi Jinping? Unironically, if that's true, then it contradicts a drop. If it's not true, then you should do some thinking about what could actually be going on. And again, that's the problem. Like, the irony is people who have only done that the whole time, if they're trying to explain to their kid what happened 10 years from now with global trade, they're not going to know the first thing about what happened.
But
so how they just say like, hey, Trump fixed it. Trump fixed it. Trump fixed it. Well, okay. Yeah. How did he do that? Is that maybe useful knowledge that you could take into the future?
17, bro.
You know,
one plus 9 plus 7 is 17.
It's like having, I don't know, a super skilled tradesman, hiring a super skilled tradesman to fix something. And like, some people just do that over and over again. And like, I'm just going to pay this guy, pay this guy. And then some people are like, I'm going to figure out how to do that. I'm going to watch what this guy's doing, and I'm going to teach myself how to do that. And there are just two types of people in the world. And just a lot of them are the former, I think.
I think the hard part, and Phil Scarborough brought up a good question in the chat. He says, are there not genuine true Q proofs? That's the thing.
That's what I'm saying.
There are, but when people make their entire content and all their followers ever see is everything is a Q proof, like literally everything is a Q proof, you're watering down
nothing
the actual Q proofs, and it makes nothing actually Q proof. But there is no actual tangible effect. Like, you're not awakening anybody when everything you put out is somehow a Q proof. It's just not possible and not true. Everybody's lying to themselves and to each other about it, but they've monetized it. Not everybody.
Yeah.
There are some people who do it responsibly. 100%. Some of the Q stuff I've seen is, we've had this discussion also so many times. I don't even know how we got on this. But
also, Phil, the Sovereign Alliance idea I got from the Q drops, man. Like, you get the most sense, and I love you, Phil, but like, you get so fucking sensitive about this. And if you listened, I said that twice tonight. And I said that on the show after the stream, and I've said that in my writing the entire time. I got the idea from the drops. The problem I am citing is that most people who only, that's a key word, okay, only focus on listening to decodes do not understand what that drop means. And the people who thought about the drop and tried to map that onto reality figured a lot of stuff out.
don't get mad, Bernie Bright.
I know.
Down.
Just that's the thing that drives me the most crazy. It's like, oh, don't you think there's any Q proofs? It's like, yeah, it's what launched me into all of this stuff. But, you know, again, it is what it is. People just want to hear
I don't remember how we got
an
on
alliance,
this
but they don't want to
track.
know what that means.
I was talking about social media and how retarded it was. That's how we got on this track. But
yeah,
and I don't remember why I did that, but I'm going to blame you. I think that's all I really care to read from the executive order. The big one is that the voter registration list, man. I think it's so huge. But yeah, we'll see what Trump does next.
Citizenship is in the news right now, so we'll see.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. Did you listen to any of the?
I read the comments of Jackson and the refutations of Jackson.
Man, she is
a little crazy. I love you too, Phil. I'm just. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Is that we get called anti-Q people when I built my writing on what I learned from the Q drops, or what the Q drops inspired me to learn about.
Yeah, just don't even bother, man. I learned a while ago when, ironically, the lawsuit stuff started kicking off, and all these people were like saying things about me that were just that's not true. Like that I never said that. That's not true at all. And it's like the same people that we're ironically talking about, the behavior that we're talking about with the decoders, are the same people who are at the center of the lawsuits. We have a different perspective on,
of course,
the lengths these people are willing to go to lie and make a buck. Also, it's all the same people. That's the behavior we're talking about,
right?
But just ignore it and understand that Phil's solid. I love Phil. I think sometimes he does it on purpose. He seems to.
Yeah. There's some of that.
What are you doing? Are you petting an animal or something?
No, there was a something sharp within my alpaca sock, and I had to figure out what it was. Some sort of splinter.
Mm.
So
your alpaca sock does not protect against splinters?
Apparently not.
Did you know I have an alpaca fur blanket?
Wow, and that seems like it'd be too warm.
It is incredibly warm. It is. It's pretty fucking amazing. Know what I'm going to do, since we're I know we already played our guard promo. I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to go grab that blanket so I can show you, because it's awesome. Let me unless you want to stall for a minute. I don't know if you have that in you.
I have only 2 pairs of alpaca socks, and the other pair is still going. I just am wearing these new ones more often because they're newer.
Here, you go for it.
Yeah, but here, I'll show you guys. I got these new alpaca socks because I guilted the team. I was like, why has Annie from Willow Wind Farm only ever sent me 1 pair of alpaca socks, when this is some trivia. I don't know how many people know this, but one of the alpacas on Willow Wind Farm is named Burning Bright. And so I thought I should deserve more alpaca socks, and I was sent them, and they are fantastic. Every time I take a shower at night before I get on the show, get into the InfoWar, and every night after the shower, I go in my closet and there's my alpaca socks. Those are my nighttime socks. They're so comfy that they pretty much double as slippers. I love them.
Yep. This is a 100% alpaca. When I wear it like this, I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones. I got like a one of those fur things around my jacket. It is unfortunate. I don't know if you heard, but we had to kill your alpaca to make this. But totally worth it, I'd say.
I think my alpaca was white or something. I can't remember.
It has brought me warmth in more ways than one. No, these things are awesome. Annie sells them. willowandfarms.com. Amazing. 100% alpaca fur. We got to go down there to the alpaca farm.
I'm not doing any of this gay alpaca stuff, though.
Well, I mean,
I guess it was heterosexual stuff, but I don't want any sexual alpaca stuff. I just want to frolic with alpacas, man.
Well, I mean, you can do that, but like, don't you want to be there for moral support? Your alpaca is gonna be popping his cherry, man.
Is he a stag? Is he due up?
They're breeding them this year.
Nice.
We're both gonna be grandpas.
There's gonna be some handsome alpacas.
Maybe, but yeah, I think that's happening in like May or something, and they need help.
Wow.
They need somebody
it's a good
to
time of year to be there. I did a road trip, Mrs. Bright and I, in Colorado in April.
So how do you know May is a good time of year to be there if you weren't there in May?
April was okay, and I assumed May would be a little bit better.
Seems like
it's an assumption.
An assumption of sorts. But yeah, we got to go down there, man, and make that happen. I think Jordan's going to be there. I think we should turn it into like a little Badlands outing. We can film
that could be our bunker.
Great content, and we can make a lot of lotion while we're down there
for
too.
The Iranian response, the inevitable Iranian response.
Yeah. But I wanted to play this clip from today's hearing.
I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources that say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everybody recognizes. But you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign. And I was thinking, I, a U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that, if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's allegiance, meaning can they control you as a matter of law? I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen to, under Japanese law, go and prosecute the person who has stolen it. So there's this relationship based on, even though I'm a temporary traveler, I'm just on vacation in Japan, I'm still locally owing allegiance in that sense.
What?
This is a Supreme Court justice, allegedly. And that was
having a stroke?
Almost permanently, I think. She definitely had one at some point, it seems.
It's one thing to say, hey, what you're saying is stupid. It's another thing to be like, I do not understand what you are trying to say, even from an evil perspective.
But that's like everything.
Yeah.
It's everything that she says. Let's play this one too.
Can I ask you a question? To follow up on what Justice Gorsuch was exploring with you with respect to domicile, did I understand you to say that domicile is going to be eventually or is controlled by Congress? Who is domiciled? I'm struggling to figure out who is domiciled in your argument.
The domiciliaries are people who are lawfully present and have an intent to remain permanently. So that's a kind of black letter, understanding of domicile. Now, Congress can dictate that certain classes of people, legal entrants and so forth, cannot lawfully lack the legal capacity to form a legally binding domicile.
But if that's so, then doesn't it make the domicile for the purpose of the 14th Amendment turn then ultimately on Congress's will in a way that the framers did not intend? I mean, my understanding was the framers put this citizenship clause into the Constitution to prevent future Congresses from being able to affect citizenship in this way.
Sure. Very briefly, no, I don't think so, because it is up to the alien whether or not they want to be domiciled here. Now, there may be
But I thought you just said Congress can make determinations as to who counts as being domiciled here. So if that's true, then it ultimately would impact, in your theory, whether or not this person can claim that they have citizenship for 14th Amendment purposes based on Congress's determination. And I just thought that's what the 14th Amendment was trying to get away from.
This is wrong, but so hilarious. Elementary Son of Man in the chat says this guy and RFK Jr. would be a hard podcast to listen to.
It's sponsored by what's Bigelow's tea.
Oh, so bad. But that's hilarious. That is hysterical. But yeah,
or motor oil.
You know,
Whichever one.
I think Ketanji Brown Jackson is her whole psyop here is she is helping and assisting to normalize use of the word retard. Like that is what has to be what it is. Like I can't think of any other reason why she would.
And it is hard to look at that and not think either, and not think that Trump and his whole side are totally cool with this and are amplifying this, right? You don't have to go down, she is part of the plan and is working part of the plan. People can be part of the plan in terms of just being thrust into the spotlight and amplified in a way that is going to do tremendous and irreparable damage to their own side. And man, if you wanted to convince me that Trump was totally cool letting that one sneak through because he knew the type of shit she would say, when, I don't think it's any stretch for anybody, whether you're a Q person or not, to think that he knew what kind of arguments were going to be had during his term. And I think he is totally cool with her being the mascot, to the point, I think what is also extremely damaging for her, for that whole side of things during these arguments, is the fact that even optically, her own, compatriots on the panel are pretty much either silent or they're like, bitch, you're crazy. You're crazy. Like, you got to pick your spots. We gotta fight them on the stuff that's a little bit of wishy-washy. And she's just like, no. I say no on everything.
Yeah, the Trump has been railing the Supreme Court lately too about how awful they are, and it's so true. Like, you have 3 people on there that will, it doesn't matter what it is. It literally does not matter. They will always vote the same way in favor of whatever the Democrats thing is. And then you have like 2 super base guys that are, they seem to at least be trying, at least how the founders intended the Supreme Court to be. And the other ones are just like all over the map. You can never understand what they actually want to do or try to do, or, you'd think they'd, based on how they voted in the past on one thing, that they'd vote one way this time, and they don't. Like, it's like they're afraid. And I saw somebody today post about how, this, John Roberts or whatever, he's like, he doesn't actually care. He almost does what a lot of the Q decoders do. He like tries to get a feel for what the people want.
Yeah.
And then he'll make his arguments or his rulings and opinions based on what he thinks the people that are waiting for the ruling want, based on the temperature of the country. It's such a joke. I do think at some point I would love to see Ketanji Brown Jackson be taken off, but she's young enough where if she was left on there forever, she would be the eternal reminder of just how god awful and retarded these people are. But also, man, I had another point there and I just lost it. Damn it. Never mind. It wasn't as good as my first point. Anyway.
I think the other argument is women obviously should not be holding public office or voting.
Way too emotional, yes.
Black women should be getting 3/5 of no votes and no public positions. And
I'm going to mute the guy who's called us a pussy for muting people who disagree with us.
I just wanted them to marinate a little bit before that.
Here's the thing, guys, in the chat. I'm just going to say this, and I know the people who are here routinely already know this, but we love friction. We love people who disagree. We don't agree ourselves. We don't want agreement. We thrive for disagreement, the friction. But there's a difference between that and bad faith trolling, or people who are, bots, or we know a lot of people who use sock accounts come into our chat. Some of our competitors, some of the Q decoders we were talking about. Ironically, they're popping up right now.
Network, actually.
Yeah. We know that they use sock accounts to come in and do this very thing. We have some limited proof of that even. So those are the people that we do mute forever when we catch wind of that shit, the bad faith stuff. You can come in good faith, disagree all you want. We'll let you stay in the chat as long as you want.
Hell, I let Phil Scarborough stay in the chat after that shit he pulled.
I would never let you ban him.
Half an hour ago.
Never let you ban my boy Phil. He made the intro to the show, man.
I know. It's the only reason he's still sticking around.
Whatever. Oh, but yeah, there's one more ruling I wanted to show. I think it's this one.
Your rule. How does this work? Are you suggesting that when a baby is born, people have to have documents, present documents? Is this happening in the delivery room? How are we determining when or whether a newborn child is a citizen of the United States under your rule?
And I think that's directly addressed in the SSA guidance that's cited in our brief. What SSA says is there's currently a system where, for example, social security numbers are generated based on the birth certificate. They say this can still be, for the vast majority of instances, completely transparent. You will still get a...
No, not transparent. I'm just talking about the particulars, because now you say your rule turns on whether the person intended to stay in the United States. And I think Justice Barrett brought this up. So we bringing pregnant women in for depositions. What are we doing to figure this out?
You know, as I pointed out earlier, the executive order turns on lawfulness of status. So if you give birth to a baby in the hospital right now, it gets the birth certificate in the system. There's a computer system.
So there's no opportunity. There's apparently no opportunity then for the person to prove or to say.
Like just the dumbest.
And there's like darker tells there from this ideology, which is that like, oh, these people like of this ideology, they don't know what real people do or act like. Like, does she have kids? I'm guessing she doesn't have kids.
I don't know.
She doesn't know what happens when you have a kid. Like,
no.
I mean, does she?
She's trying to make the argument. It's ironic that how she even talks about a baby not born yet, as if it's potentially got citizenship rights. But back when they were arguing for the Roe v. Wade stuff, the arguments you're making is like those things, they weren't even a real person. We could just murder those things.
Right. That's even darker for sure. It's like, since when do you give a shit about the consent of a newborn baby? But it's good. It's good for this stuff to be out there. I mean, it's a reverse humiliation ritual, I would say.
The downside. This is my point earlier that I forgot about. There's probably very few people outside of the people that like follow this stuff for a living, like we do, that actually pay attention to how retarded she is. Like there are people who may not even know her name or any of the names of the people on the Supreme Court, let alone the just utter. I can't even think of the right word for it. Retardation is just not sufficient for what this is. It's got to be a humiliation ritual for everybody involved, including us. But there are people certainly that don't even know a single thing she says. Or they just like, oh, she voted for this way. CNN says it's a good thing because that's what we wanted. They don't actually see the arguments. Are you looking? Did you look it up? Did you find it? She has kids?
Yeah, she has 2 kids, allegedly. So just out of touch. Maybe somebody else was involved in that process. But it's amazing. I think what just the base layer humiliation ritual is, even if you're not absorbing what the argument is, the way she's talking is just, you can tell she's stupid. It's just that simple. Like these people are just stupid. And I think a lot of that humiliation ritual was for that side of the aisle, for the left, quote unquote, was really exemplified in the Kamala Harris deployment. Just because, besides all the ideology and all the dark stuff, the reason Chris might call this a comedy phase of the info war is Kamala Harris was just tough to listen to. It was like, what are you saying? What are you trying to say? You're on podcasts that are like regime podcasts. They're your podcasts. They are there to pump your propaganda. And you don't seem to understand the propaganda that you are supposed to be deploying. Many such cases, but
we got some breaking news here. Hold on. Breaking news, everybody.
Stand by for separation.
The Orion spacecraft has successfully separated from the upper stage of the rocket.
Yeah, we have good separation, good motion.
The Artemis II astronauts are manually piloting Orion.
Confirmation, separation from the interim cryogenic propulsion stage.
Good motion. Go for 180 pitch, confirmed. Separation confirmed, Houston.
Now, why is it more distorted than in 1969?
All right, here comes the pitch rate.
Yet somehow
Not using Starlink.
Somehow better quality video than we get out of Iran.
Nice.
Amazing.
So proud to be an American.
I just don't get it. Like, of all the technology we have, how can we not get better?
We're pretty close to having X-Wings, I think. That's the next one. Looking at this.
It is still...
I think we're close.
It is still April Fool's, so maybe I should settle down a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, man. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, we almost went 2 hours, didn't we?
I think so. I mean, yeah, it's good. So we could talk about sharks if you wanted, but
man, I watched something the other day where it was like, this right here is why I will never do a Gar cruise, and I don't remember what it was. But I remember thinking that, and then I also thought, like, oh, it was on Basis Conspiracies when we were talking about the lady who died. Like, the plane crashed in the ocean. They had to swim back to shore. It wasn't far offshore.
When was this?
This was just this last Monday. I mean, we were talking about conspiracy. It was the Secretary of Health and Human Services for Hawaii back when Obama's birth certificate stuff was going on. And she was, like, pretty clearly drugged underwater by a scuba diver. Yeah. But I was like, where are the sharks in this video? I expected much more sharks to be on the GoPro film, but also there was another reason why I'll never do a Gar cruise.
Yeah. You know, there are stories of sharks where they just get you immediately, and then there are other stories of people being out there for like a day and nothing happens.
Yeah.
You just never know. But it's not a game of roulette I want to be playing.
What's your favorite shark movie, by the way?
Shark movie.
Jaws.
Man, there's not
the Meg.
Jaws is a good movie, but like besides Jaws, there's not many good ones. They're all just like way over the... You know what one I think is solid is what's her name?
There's a serial killer one where this like serial killer kills people by like hanging them off the side of his boat.
Oh yeah, I saw clips
eaten
from
by
that.
sharks.
Right.
It's
called
right.
not that movie, but the movie I think is decent for a shark movie is called The Shallows with Blake Lively, 2016.
Oh,
It's not
I haven't seen that movie, but
it's not crazy over the top. It's like well filmed.
You're just a Blake Lively stan, aren't you?
Not really. She doesn't really do it for me, honestly.
What
Plus,
does
I
do
heard
it
she's
for
a
you,
real
Burning Bright?
bitch.
She's what?
Heard she's a real bitch, according to the internet drama.
There's a lot of those out there, man.
So, yeah, that one's decent, but yeah, I saw 47 meters down. That one's okay, over the top, but
yesterday, me and my girlfriend, like, we went out for it was like our 1 year anniversary or whatever, and we came back and we were gonna go out to a movie, but like let's just watch a movie at home. We'll just rent a movie at home. We literally spent an hour, if not more, trying to find like a movie to watch, and we couldn't find anything good or even like somewhat appealing. And we were just like, let's just go back to watching our Netflix series, and that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah,
there's no good movies anymore.
It has made, there aren't any good movies, and I think the just utter amount, the sheer amount of shit out there, it creates that paralysis. I think there used to be this connection to like go look at the movie shelf in the basement and be like, which movie do we want to watch?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway, how about we do some ransom boost? Know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm going to play our GARP promo one more time because we're in like the final countdown right now, and you all need to get your in-person or virtual ticket. So you're running out of time.
Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.
Chat seems to agree that there's not many good movies out there. I think we need to get into the filmmaking business. We need to write and produce and make our own film. We can slowly do it at each GART, just film the next scene of it each time. And,
I did see people in the chat talking about the USS Indianapolis, and that is indeed shark lore legend for a reason. I was actually, a couple nights ago over the weekend, I was listening to a whole documentary about it. Not a documentary, because those usually kind of fake, but just this guy talking about it based on all the first-hand reports, and that's some crazy shit. Is anybody ever out there who's like, sharks don't attack people? You just get them down the USS Indianapolis rabbit hole, and they will shut up.
It wasn't that the one where like Japan sunk the boat, and then like out of the 2,000 people on board, only like a couple hundred survived because a lot of them got
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And, of course, many of them drowned. Many of them died in various ways. But many of them were eaten by sharks. And the survivors are still around. Like, there's still a decent number of survivors. I think we might be at the stage right now where they're not. But a lot of the survivors were on video talking about these things at the time. And just talking about how, the white tips would just circle the rafts, and then if anybody slipped off of it or anything, it was just like they were done. Like within seconds, they would just grab them. And the saddest part of it is that I think it was day 4 when they got rescued. It was a plane. I don't know if it was a cargo plane or what plane it was that had, flown over them and spotted them. And however many guys were left, there was a couple hundred or something in these different groups that had all drifted from each other. But the planes themselves caused such a disturbance that it triggered like a mass feeding frenzy. And the survivors said, and the pilots confirmed while watching it, and the rescuers, that most of the guys who died in the last day died because the planes came in.
Wow.
And because they had kind of settled into this pattern where the sharks wouldn't really attack until it was dusk. And they usually went after somebody who was drifting out or away from the group. But as long as you kind of stayed in the group, you were probably going to be okay. And when the planes came in, they said, according to the stat, they said 60 guys got killed in 10 minutes when the planes came in because there was just a mass attack.
Could you imagine sitting there finally you're in the middle of the
plane
ocean
is coming and you get
I'm finally gonna make it out of here, and then just you and 60 of your friends.
There was one super based guy who did survive, and there was a bunch of witnesses that did see him do his base shit where he was on one of these rafts, and by day 4 people were going crazy, they had salt water poisoning, and so literally they were going nuts. And there was a kid on his raft that dove into the water because he thought he saw an island and started swimming toward it. Fins were cutting across the water toward this kid. The captain jumps in after him. That one of the not captain the boat, but just a military captain, jumps in the water, goes, grabs him, drags him back to the raft. And right when he gets to the raft, an older guy who's also crazy stands up and dives in the same spot because he thinks he sees the island, and he goes in and gets that guy. So these other guys on the raft were just let them go, let them get eaten. And he didn't, but so that's pretty based.
That is crazy. Anyway, let's go through the boosts and rants here. We have 1027 JS leaving a boost, as she always does. Thank you, Joe, my fellow North Dakotan, for $20, saying good evening. Good evening to you as well, Joe. And then a bunch of Rumble rants tonight. We read through some of these, but I'll start at the beginning again. So some of these might be redundant. I'm Rosie 2. In T's speech tonight, he said the astronauts were unbelievable. That was for $10. Thank you. Adam Chester, my nuts. China lands on moon. Russia lands on moon. India landed on moon. Japan has landed on the moon. We have landed on the moon. We have technology to land on the moon whenever we choose. That's for $1.
Maybe.
And he left a series of these before he got mad at me, and I'll explain that in a second. Siesta Randy says, I'd rather see a big orange circle with a B on it than go to the moon instead. Then Adam Chester, my nuts, a few in a row here. Chandrayaan-3 is the third mission in the program, a series of lunar exploration missions developed by ISRO. The mission consists of Vikram, a lunar one with landing. With this landing, ISRO became the fourth national space agency to successfully land on the moon after the Soviet space program, NASA, and CNSA, the first organization in the recorded human history. I think he's talking about India's. I think he was on later because he was.
I saw this one.
Because I had said that I have a friend of mine that I know
Yeah.
personally, who I trust. He said that his cousin works as a senior engineer at NASA and was commenting on how they don't have the technology to land on the moon. And
Yeah.
like, you know,
It's
obviously
just as good a source as that video we watched.
obviously I don't know the guy personally, but I'm going to take him at his word for it. And it seems like to be the case based on the last 50 years and how fake looking the first moon landing looked. Anyway, Adam Chester, my nuts, posted this. My friend's cousin works for Raytheon and knows karate. He told my friend that we don't have technology to launch missiles. Like, obviously poking fun at what I said. So I said, my cousin's friend sells tampons and said you're running low in the chat. And then he
He got really upset.
got really mad and told me to piss off and he left. So here's my thing. Like, you started it, bro. You can't poke fun at me and get mad when I poke fun back at you.
Yeah. I think we've set that precedent well enough.
Yeah.
The irony is I have a cousin who I fought with or fought alongside and who trained karate with me who worked for Raytheon. So I literally have a cousin who worked for Raytheon and knows karate. But I will ask him about missiles specifically.
Yeah, you should ask him about that technology. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have the technology to launch missiles. Like, that wouldn't shock me.
I feel
Nothing would
like
shock me.
missiles might be real.
Yeah, who knows? The final demand says, who cares about Iran elections? Who cares about Iran elections? Gates and Burchett claim U.S. Army is breeding captured aliens with humans taken from war zones and migrant caravans for intergalactic comms. Are they U.S. citizens? You know, I hope they ask that to Ketanji Brown Jackson, because I think only she can determine that for us.
We have to wait until the movie Disclosure Day comes out and everybody will decode it.
Yeah, but if you thought like the current state of the info war was bad, you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait until we get fully down this alien breeding thing.
The alien shit is going to be the fakest and gayest of all.
Man, ironically, I hope it's the realest. But I do think there are people out there that have been bred by aliens and they are amongst us. It would explain some things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Suzy Q20, how long are we supposed to be okay with bullshit?
Just in general?
That is a personal question. Like, nobody can tell you how long you have to be okay with anything.
Right.
It's up to you.
You'll take it, Susie. Okay. Igor
Tigor. Igor Tigor 97 says, short-term pain for the long-term gain. Trust the plan game. I do not trust the plan. I trust God's plan. I trust there is a plan, but I don't trust people who tell me to trust the plan when they don't know what the plan is.
Oh, sports are fake becoming a major national narrative. You and Chris and I were talking about this a little bit earlier today, but you know how we all sort of use the marker of have normies texted you about anything recently?
Yeah.
2 normie cousins texted me today about different fake sports.
Which ones?
One was baseball. The ABS system is demonstrating
what
we all knew or what grown-up adults knew the entire time, which is that umpires just rig games on the fly all the time and that championships in baseball are fake unless the Red Sox are winning them. But my other cousin texted me and said, have you seen all this shit with the Kansas City Chiefs? I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently big controversy in NFL conspiracy world where the owner of the Chiefs was talking about how the league likes when the Chiefs are in the playoffs and whatever. Super innocuous comments, but it's raised all these videos going back the last 2 seasons, even though ironically they were horrible last year, and showing all of the overturned calls in their favor, especially 2 years ago. I think they set the record where they had 15 game-winning drives that only were kept alive by a flag thrown on the 3rd down, in the red zone. Basically no team had ever had that happen in 3 games, and they had it happen 14 or something like that.
That's crazy.
It was just, I love to see it though. I'm a sports guy, but
me too.
And we were arguing about hockey stuff, and I love sports arguments. They're just classic old arguments. But people are like, hockey's the realest, and hockey is probably my favorite. But all hockey needs to do with rigging is players just hold on to the players who are good in the playoffs, and the refs just don't care. They don't call anything. You know this as a Wild fan. Kirill Kaprizov is going to go from being top 3 guy in the league to totally meaningless by the time game 3 or 4. Yeah.
We'll see.
If it's fake.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty optimistic about the Wild team this year. It will, with sports, I love the sports stuff too. The ABS thing is most interesting to me because I think they're slowly inching towards a fully automated strike zone. That's where it's going. They're taking the
how do you go back? Yeah, and that the Red Sox happened to be the game that got all the national headlines this week because they challenged 8 times. They won 6 of them, and they lost 2, so they couldn't challenge anymore. Apparently that's the way it works. And according to whatever commission is looking at the game, they said there were 4 other misses in the next inning, but they couldn't challenge any of them.
Wow.
So it's at the point where the umpires don't know what to do, and they don't even know what to say. I was reading an article today where retired umpires are like, yeah, we feel really bad for those guys. And they're like, well, do you think it's wrong? And they're like, well, it just objectively is what it is. So it just demonstrates that the strike zone has been totally subjective.
Oh, it always has been, and totally inconsistent.
Yeah. The strike zone's pretty important.
Yeah.
So, it may or may not have been deciding, who is winning it. And again, you don't even have to go into conspiracy world of they're rigging it for specific teams. It just means that it's total luck of the draw too. You could argue everyone's on the same playing field, but it's not really a sporting thing. It's just, what are we doing then?
Well, baseball was my sport. That's the one I excelled the most at. And pitching wise, I could throw it hard, but compared to other people, I didn't throw it the hardest. But my thing was my control. I could hit my spot pretty much anytime I wanted to. And I had a wicked split finger. But that's another story. I'd always try to, the very first inning, you try to test your boundaries of what the umpire will give you.
Yeah,
and so
you try to see where his strike zone is.
Yeah, so I'd always have the catcher, the first 3 pitches of the game, you start as far outside as you can where you reasonably think it could be a strike and give me a spot. Then I'd hit it. And then if we get the strike there, it's holy shit, this is going to be a great game. Just sit there all game. And because they can't hit that when it's that far outside. But typically, they wouldn't call that. And then you just come in a little bit, and then you'd find that outer perimeter of the strike zone, and that's your spot you hit.
Yeah.
And ironically, when you had a guy who wouldn't give you that and would make you throw it over the plate, you're like,
you get mad.
This is gonna be a rough game. Fuck.
It's so funny because as a kid, I hated baseball, partly because I thought it was boring. Now I like it, but partly I remember we grew up in the era where they had the box right there on TV, and you could just see. And I remember my brother was a massive baseball guy, could tell you everybody's pitch and everybody's speed and all that. And I'd be watching these games and being like, but that's a ball. Everyone in the world, baseball is uniquely strange where, in football, even if there's a bad call, there's some element of you can argue with each other about whether or not the flag, whether or not it's pass interference, right? There's subjectivity that comes in. Baseball was always weird where it's hold on, so everyone in the world watching this game knows immediately that is not what he said it was?
Yeah.
But we're like, wow, wide strike zone tonight, big strike zone. What do you mean? Like, what are we doing here? Like, imagine in basketball, they're like, yeah, big net tonight.
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, it's just part of the game, though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I know. It's
obviously
just
you get into the rigging and
retarded.
stuff, but that's always the most fun is like figuring. It's the mind games of baseball, like and learning the not just the hitters but the umpires you have. Because when I wasn't pitching, like I'd play anywhere, but my favorite place to play when I wasn't pitching was catching because you interact with the ump and you actually like you try to develop a relationship with the umpire so that you get the calls.
You shady motherfucker.
Yeah. I mean, and then you got the whole framing thing. Like there's always controversy about, you catch the ball and like drag it in. So, and you get good at doing it so that it looks like you caught it over here instead of on the other
wax
side.
on,
I mean,
wax off.
Love that shit. But anyway, we'll keep going here. DCNR 226 for $50 says, and thank you very much for the generous donation. Venezuela model will work in an Iran without a dominant IRGC. Then we exit the Middle East because our bases are gone. So no reason to stay, you see. And a Gulf alliance forms. His genius seems stable to me.
Oh, a little poem, a little rhyme in there. And I largely agree. I think, stabilization.
Susie Q20 for $5 says, thanks, John. Thank you right back. DCB Nash just left Georgia again, driving back home to Nashville. You guys are making the drive seem shorter. Thank you. Looking forward to possibly seeing you all at GART. What do you mean possibly? Oh, this might be the guy I need to call back.
Okay.
If that's who I'm thinking of, I should text him. Because I'm pretty sure we had scheduled a call like one time. We were like, yeah, I'll call you after the thing. And then I don't think either of us called. I don't remember if I had that phone call. One of those things. If that's him. Anyway, G-Font is 119. I couldn't see the launch from Florida's west coast earlier because there was all dark clouds to the east that brought hardly enough rain to make my lawn wet. Then how could they even launch? Don't you have to have perfect condition?
Not nowadays. That's how far the technology has come.
Yeah.
We can launch in much crazier conditions, but we can no longer do the things we could do 60 years ago.
Just can't do them anymore. I think with that, I need a good outro video because that's all of them.
Are there any good basketball scenes? I don't remember the scenes from that movie. I haven't seen it.
It's a great movie. I forgot about that movie. Yes, there's lots of good.
Rewatch that.
YouTube, we're gonna have to
scenes.
say goodbye to you guys. I don't know if Facebook's the same as YouTube in terms of like demonetizing people, but we're gonna say goodbye to YouTube. Thanks everybody. Hit that thumbs up over